Thank you so much for tuning in today. Have you ever struggled with getting your students to write well about reading? If you have, this video is for you. All right, let's go. Hey friends, thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to me. If you are new here, consider subscribing below. We'll have lots of videos for you about children's literature, about getting kids excited about reading, writing, and creating. If you click that bell notification, you'll get an email every time I have a new video. I often struggle with getting my kids to write well about reading. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not a natural thing for many of them to do. And to get them to do it in a way that is authentic, that is real, that is something that they actually want to do and something that they will do when they actually leave our classrooms is not the easiest thing in the world. So I thought, hey, why don't I ask someone who's really good at this if they could come on and just talk to us about what they do in their classroom to make writing about reading something that's awesome and not something that's So I asked my friend Katherine Sokolowski, a middle school teacher in Illinois, if she would do just that. And she delivered. Her response is amazing. Take it away, Katherine.
Hey y'all, my name is Katherine Sokolowski. I have been a teacher for 21 years, anywhere from preschool all the way up through 7th grade. The last 2 years I've spent at the middle school level, specifically in 7th grade. Colby asked if I would come on here today and talk to you guys about how to help our students improve in the area of writing about reading. And I'm going to be honest with you, I sent him a message and asked if I was the right person for this job. Mainly because I don't know that I have any specific way I teach that. I know that in the past I looked at the Lucy Calkins units of study for reading, and they have a whole unit on literary analysis, and I taught it and I was not thrilled with it. I've had to write literary analysis myself as a student in grad school and then taking additional courses for middle school endorsement. And what I found helped me the most was, number one, to be a writer, and number two, to be a reader. And so what I try to do in my classroom is that I have my students do what I do. And so I look at how I respond to reading as a reader. And sometimes my response is simple. I just tweet the authors. I tweet authors that I love, and I tell them about the books that I just read of theirs. For example, I've been reading Jason Reynolds' Long Way Down. I think it's one of the most brilliant books I've ever read. So I tweeted Jason when I read it, even though Jason doesn't know me. I told every single person I met that they needed to read it. I've bought it as gifts for people, and I blogged about it. And so that's the way I respond to reading. So I want my students to have an authentic way to respond to reading too, and that's what I teach them. I teach them if they love a book, they can go grab an iPad. We only have one iPad in our room, but it's linked to a classroom Twitter account, and they're welcome to tweet the author they just read, or just even tweet the world about what they just read. We've talked about how we're putting out positive tweets, not negative. So if they don't like a book, that's okay, but they don't need to tweet about that. We have a classroom Instagram account that we do not use that often, but it's there on the iPad. And if they want to use that in the video function, they're welcome to use that to tell people about what they just read. I encourage them to talk to their classmates. I want them to know each other as readers. And so we talk to each other at the end of every reading and writing workshop about what we're reading and what we love. But our specific way that we write in long form about reading is blogging. I use the platform KidBlog because to me it's easy to use. It does cost money, and I've had my school pay for it some years, and some years I've just paid for it. And I have a requirement that students blog every other week. And sometimes there's a specific blog I want them to write, and sometimes it's just their choice. For example, we just finished up the quarter, the second quarter of school, and in 7th grade we have a genre requirement. So the kids have to read one book in a certain genre every quarter. For my class this quarter it was historical fiction. And so at the end of the quarter, to show me you fulfilled that genre and to talk about it a little bit, I asked the students to blog about the book they picked for their genre requirement. So with this blog being historical fiction, most of the students wrote about it in a certain format. So for example, they might have started with a paragraph talking about the title and the author of their book, the fact that it was historical fiction, but then why it was historical fiction. A lot of them then moved on in the second paragraph to talk about the plot, setting, characters, and then just like they might compare it to another book, but they don't have to. A lot of them focused in that paragraph about what was the historical event that the book centered around, because a lot of my students thought, even in 7th grade, they thought that historical fiction just meant that it was back in time. And we had a lot of discussion about the fact that I was born in the 70s, and just because a book was written in the 70s and was realistic fiction, that doesn't make it historical fiction. So some of them focused on that in the second paragraph. And then many of them went on to a third paragraph and they reviewed the book. And since our kid blogs are private, they're just for our classes. If they didn't love it, they were allowed to be honest about it there because we weren't sending it out into the world. And a lot of their classmates look to their kid blogs and look for recommendations there. And so if you don't like a book, that's fine on kid blog, but you have to talk about what it is you don't like, because sometimes kids just don't pick books very well for themselves. And so I want them to start to recognize that. So we might write about reading in that way on our blogs. And then sometimes we just post reviews around the classroom. I'm trying to think of what we did recently. We read some poetry books and we posted up like the favorite poem we had from that book and maybe like a little paragraph or something about why we liked that poem. So our writing about reading in my 7th grade classroom I think of as pretty low key. I don't want it to be high pressure. I don't want it to be something that kids don't feel successful at. I want them to feel like it's just a natural progression from reading the book to sharing what they thought about that book with the world, whether it's the whole world on Twitter or Instagram, or whether it's our classroom community. But I want it to be something that becomes natural to them and that they want to read a book and they want to share what they read. So for example, with The Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, that book, if you've read it, you know that at the end of the book, you're going to want to talk to somebody. And I've been seeing that in my classroom over and over. Kids have been tweeting Jason. Kids have blogged about that book. But the best reaction is always just the immediate reaction. And kids finish it in class. The book gets slammed shut. Everybody turns and looks at that student. And then they all start talking and begging to see who's next on the list. So that's what writing about reading looks like in our classroom. I would love to hear what it looks like in your classroom as well, but I hope that helps. And Colby said that I get to ask you a question if you would like to respond. And so my question is just, in light of the current education climate, I think that we hear a lot of the negativity in education, but knowing my own building and knowing the friends that I have that teach, I know there's a lot of great stuff that's happening in classrooms right now. So I'm just wondering if you would like to share what amazing stuff is going on in your classroom right now. What are you loving that your kids are doing? Or what are you excited about this coming semester? I hope you have a great break if you're already on it, and happy reading. Bye. Thanks, Colby.
Thank you once again for tuning in. It means so much to me. Answer Catherine's question. What's going on that's awesome in your classroom? What are your kids doing? What are you doing? What just has you excited to go to work every single day? Let us know in the comments below. If you ever need anything, just let me know. Have a wonderful day, and as always, happy reading.